Ohio may look serene, but its darkest truths unfold in places no one suspects. Family homes, quiet churches, even hospital corridors, husbands turned executioners, mothers who betrayed their own children, and trusted doctors hiding poison behind a smile. Crime scenes soaked in silence left entire towns paralyzed with fear, as verdicts revealed the boundless depravity behind familiar faces. These are not distant horrors, but betrayals born in Ohio's heartland, where ordinary lives concealed extraordinary violence. And this is Inside Ohio's Most Evil Killers, full list and shocking true crime cases. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Angela Wagner, and 8 lives executed in their sleep, a family's trust shattered forever. Ohio's darkest massacre began not with strangers, but with blood relatives obsessed with control. Angela Wagner was once seen as a devoted mother and grandmother, describing Hannah Roden, the young mother of her granddaughter, as like a daughter. Yet, in April 2016, she and her family orchestrated a plot that became the largest homicide investigation in Ohio history. Their motive? Control of a child. Over 2 nights, 8 members of the Roden family were shot to death in 4 separate homes across Pike County. Victims included parents, siblings, and even a teenager. Some were killed in their beds, execution style. Christopher Roden Sr. was struck by 9 bullets. Hannah Roden, just 19, was shot twice in the head, her newborn baby found crying beside her body. Prosecutors later revealed the Wagners had surveilled the family for months, studying routines and even pets guarding the houses. The breakthrough came in 2018 when investigators arrested Angela, her husband Billy, and their 2 sons, George IV and Jake. Angela's mother, Rita Newcomb, was also charged with helping forge custody documents. At first, Angela denied everything, telling reporters the real killers were monsters. But in September 2021, facing overwhelming evidence, she pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit aggravated murder and other charges, sparing herself and her family the death penalty. On January 3, 2025, in Pike County Court of Common Pleas, Angela Wagner, now 55, appeared pale and restrained. The judge described the case as exposing the boundless depravity of human nature. Andrea Shoemaker, the mother of victim Hannah Gilley, looked directly at her and said, "You are evil." Her 30-year sentence closed one chapter of a saga still unfolding. Her son Jake had already pleaded guilty to 8 murders. George IV was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. Billy Wagner awaits trial. The community, once paralyzed by fear, found little comfort. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine summarized the case bluntly. This was an obsession with custody, obsession with control. International coverage portrayed it as a chilling reminder that family loyalty can turn deadly. From this tragedy arise stark warnings. Even trusted families can harbor lethal secrets. Early disputes over children can escalate into violence if ignored, and communities must treat obsessive behavior as a danger signal before it spirals beyond control. Angela Wagner's story is more than betrayal. It is proof that the deadliest conspiracies can be born inside the very bonds meant to protect life. For moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. John Warren Parsons. A quiet April evening in Chillicothe, Ohio, turned into chaos when a robbery suspect fled through city streets and an off-duty officer's pursuit ended with a fatal shot. The man at the center of this story was John Warren Parsons, born in 1971, a career criminal who lived under aliases like Chad Johnson and Mike Woolham. Standing 5'10" and weighing 180 pounds, he blended into small-town life until crime defined him. On April 21, 2005, Parsons stole a car, robbed a gas station, and when cornered by police, opened fire. His bullet struck Officer Larry Cox, an off-duty Chillicothe policeman who had joined the chase. Cox was hit in the neck and killed instantly, turning a robbery into the city's most devastating police killing. The manhunt began immediately. Parsons abandoned his car, fled on foot, and hid for days before his eventual arrest. But the story did not end there. In July 2006, while awaiting trial, he engineered a dramatic escape from Ross County Jail. Using bed sheets, newspapers, and toothpaste to disguise loose bricks, he slipped out, sparking a 3-month national search. The FBI placed him on its 10 most wanted list, offering a $125,000 reward. He appeared on America's Most Wanted, with viewers across the country urged to call in tips. On October 19, 2006, after weeks of tension, police found Parsons hiding in a shack near a lumber yard in Chillicothe. He surrendered without incident, but his days of freedom were over. Facing capital charges, Parsons eventually pleaded guilty. On December 8, 2006, he stood before Ross County Common Pleas Court, offering a tearful apology to the Cox family. Prosecutors recalled his emotional confession, where he admitted he knew he had killed a police officer that night. The plea deal spared him the death penalty, but his sentence was life without parole. For the community, the pain was immeasurable. Officer Cox's family heard Parsons' words, but no apology could undo the loss. The FBI called the case a reminder of how cop killers bring nationwide resolve, uniting law enforcement until capture is certain. From this tragedy emerge enduring lessons. Never underestimate the desperation of a criminal facing arrest. Correctional facilities must rigorously assess escape risks, and communities must remain vigilant when fugitives are on the run, as silence can prolong danger. John Parsons remains behind bars in Ohio. His story is not one of freedom, but of the heavy cost when violence collides with law, leaving scars on a city forever. Number 3. Rebecca Auborn. Behind Columbus's busy streets, 4 men trusted the wrong stranger. Fentanyl in their veins, possessions gone. Police soon uncovered a chilling pattern of deliberate death. At the center of it all stands 33-year-old Rebecca Auborn, a woman prosecutors describe as a predator hiding in plain sight. By day, she was anonymous. By night, she allegedly became what the Ohio Attorney General later called a calculated serial killer. Her victims were not enemies, but customers, men she met for sex, men who never walked away. Between December 2022 and June 2023, 4 men died under the same chilling pattern. Auborn allegedly laced encounters with fentanyl, a drug so potent that just a few grains can stop breathing within minutes. Once they collapsed, prosecutors say, she stole what she could, wallets, cell phones, even cars, before leaving the scene as if nothing had happened. The names of the dead stand as grim markers: 64-year-old Wayne Aiken, 54-year-old Robert Snoke, 30-year-old Joseph Crumpler, and 42-year-old Guy Renda Jr. A 5th man narrowly survived. His account became the thread detectives needed to unravel a pattern of death stretching across the city. One of the most vocal calls for justice came from Christine Aiken, Wayne's daughter. Frustrated by what she described as police silence, she pursued her own search. Acting on a Facebook tip, she tracked down a woman known as Becca and later confirmed through news reports that it was Rebecca Auborn. Somebody else's father, brother, loved one should not have had to die, she said. A voice of both grief and defiance. By October 2023, a Franklin County grand jury indicted Auborn on nearly 30 counts, including 4 murders, aggravated robbery, and drug trafficking. She pleaded not guilty. In court, wearing a beige jail uniform, she stood expressionless as her attorney entered the plea. A judge later ruled in February 2025 that she was competent to stand trial, clearing the path for the forthcoming court proceedings. The case rattled Ohio, sparking debates on social media over the risks of casual encounters and the easy reach of fentanyl. Authorities warned the public, predators may not need weapons when drugs can silence as effectively as a gun. 3 lessons stand out. Trust can be fatally misplaced, especially with strangers. Early signs of overdose must be acted on immediately, and families who push for answers can expose truths law enforcement misses. Rebecca Auborn's trial may deliver justice, but the lives already stolen cannot return. In a world where desire meets danger, vigilance is no longer optional, it is survival. Number 4. Amanda Hovanec. A custody battle turned into a calculated killing. In a quiet Ohio town, Timothy Hovanec returned home to drop off his daughters, unaware he was walking into a death trap. The perpetrator was Amanda Hovanec, a 35-year-old mother from Wapakoneta. Estranged from her husband, locked in bitter divorce proceedings, and enraged over a court order granting Timothy temporary custody of their 3 daughters, Amanda devised a plan few could imagine. With the help of her lover Anthony Theodorou and her mother Anita Green, she chose murder as the solution. On April 23, 2022, Amanda and her accomplices dug a shallow grave in a wooded area outside town. The next evening, Timothy arrived to return the children. As he unloaded their belongings, his dashcam recorded his final words. "What the heck are you doing? Did you just assault me? Get away from me!" Moments later, Amanda wrestled him to the ground, held his neck, and injected his shoulder with M99 plus an animal tranquilizer 1,000 times stronger than morphine. Within minutes, Timothy was dead. His body was bagged, placed in Amanda's car, and buried in the pre-dug grave. Investigators quickly pieced together the truth. Amanda confessed days later, leading authorities to Timothy's remains. Prosecutors described her actions as cold-blooded, calculated, and cruel. Judge James Knepp called it as bad a crime as I have seen or could have imagined. In October 2024, Amanda, then 37, pleaded guilty in federal court to conspiracy and distribution of a controlled substance resulting in death. She was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Her mother received 10 years, her lover 18. In court, Amanda admitted, "No matter how hard I try to explain my actions, it comes down to me being selfish." Sitting in her prison uniform, she showed little emotion as the sentence was read. Timothy's family expressed devastation. His brother Daniel said, "I will forever be haunted with the memory of telling the girls their mother murdered their father." Prosecutors also noted Timothy's death harmed U.S. diplomatic research as he was employed by the State Department. The case offers urgent lessons. Custody disputes, if fueled by rage, can escalate to irreversible tragedy. Dangerous substances like M99, once misused, become weapons of silent destruction. And when families witness warning signs of obsession, silence enables devastation. Amanda Hovanec's story proves that betrayal within a family can cut deeper than any outside threat. In the end, custody was never decided by a judge, it was stolen by violence. Number 5. Chelsea Perkins. Revenge can wait years in silence, then strike without warning. In a quiet corner of Ohio's Cuyahoga Valley National Park, that silence shattered with one gunshot. The perpetrator was Chelsea Perkins, a 31-year-old military veteran and mother from Alexandria, Virginia. A former U.S. Coast Guard member, she was also known for running an OnlyFans account. Perkins carried a history of trauma, but prosecutors argued that her motive was clear: revenge against 31-year-old Matthew Dunmeyer, a man she accused of rape in 2017. No charges had ever been filed. In March 2021, Perkins traveled more than 300 miles to Ohio in her husband's white car. She and Dunmeyer rented an Airbnb in Cleveland, then went hiking together in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. At 10:29 a.m., Dunmeyer texted his girlfriend. Less than 90 minutes later, hikers heard a single gunshot. Prosecutors said Perkins shot him in the back of the head, execution style, on a wooded trail. After leaving his body behind, Perkins drove to Michigan, where she got a tattoo of a noose on her arm. Investigators later uncovered a deleted, fake suicide note on her phone, written as though from Dunmeyer himself. Days later, his body was discovered near a cemetery by hikers. The investigation unraveled swiftly. Perkins' GPS records, social media activity, and DNA on a 9mm pistol linked her to the crime. Federal agents arrested her months later in Florida. In court, prosecutors described her actions as a coldly calculated intention to cause his death. Judge Solomon Oliver Jr. agreed, noting her lack of remorse. In May 2025, Perkins pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and using a firearm on federal property. On September 9, 2025, she was sentenced to 22.5 years in federal prison. Her head lowered, she told the court, "I take full responsibility for what I've done." Dunmeyer's family traveled to Ohio for sentencing. His father said, "My son was a good person too, and now his children have no father." His uncle called Perkins evil or vile and said she got off easy. The case leaves harsh lessons. First, unresolved trauma can fuel destructive cycles if never addressed. Second, digital evidence, from GPS to deleted notes, rarely stays hidden. Finally, Rage disguised as justice can devastate entire families. Chelsea Perkins' story is more than a murder. It is a reminder that vengeance, once unleashed, never heals wounds. It only creates deeper ones. Number 6. Taylor Marks. Money, control, and resentment. When family ties twist into betrayal, the outcome can turn deadly. In Akron, Ohio, the story of Taylor Marks revealed just how far that betrayal could go. Taylor Marks was born in 1989 and adopted as an infant by Christy and Bruce Marks. Raised in comfort, she was given every opportunity, from horseback riding to dance lessons. But by her early 20s, privilege had soured into resentment. Taylor clashed bitterly with her mother, moved out, and began plotting Christy's murder with her boyfriend Brian Smith. Prosecutors later said greed and anger drove the plan. On October 24, 2009, Taylor convinced her 58-year-old mother to meet her near an Akron apartment complex. Waiting in the shadows was Troy Purdy, promised $5,000 for the act. Christy was brutally stabbed at least 13 times. A nearby surveillance camera captured Taylor standing idly by, despite later claiming she screamed for the attack to stop. Police responded quickly after Taylor and Smith called 911, falsely reporting a random assailant. Detectives noticed inconsistencies almost immediately. Within 4 hours, all three confessed. Purdy admitted to wielding the knife, while Taylor acknowledged luring her mother and arranging payment. Smith confirmed his involvement in the conspiracy. In court, the details painted a chilling picture. Summit County prosecutors pursued the death penalty against Taylor and Purdy under Ohio's murder-for-hire statute. At sentencing in September 2010, Taylor, just 21 years old, pleaded guilty to aggravated murder. The death penalty specification was dropped, and she received life without parole. Christy's family delivered heartbreaking testimony. Her brother, Jeffrey Buckholder, admitted, "I never would have dreamt this," stunned that Christy's devotion as a mother could end with her daughter's betrayal. Prosecutors revealed Christy's loved ones asked for mercy, convinced she would not have wanted her only child executed. The brutality of the crime reverberated far beyond Akron. Prosecutors reminded the court that Christy's wealth, built from a home healthcare business and inheritance, was at the center of Taylor's motive. From this case, 3 lessons stand out. Unchecked resentment within families can escalate into violence. Conspiracies unravel under even modest police scrutiny. And greed can distort judgment until only devastation remains. Today, Taylor Marks serves life without parole at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. She once claimed her boyfriend was the true mastermind, but her guilty plea sealed her fate, leaving her story as a permanent warning. Money and control gained through blood come at the highest possible cost. Number 7. Gail Eastwood-Ritchey. In rural Ohio, a decades-old mystery began with a gruesome discovery along Sidley Road, a discovery that haunted an entire community for nearly 30 years. The woman responsible was Gail Eastwood-Ritchey, a 22-year-old nanny from Euclid, Ohio, living with her parents in 1993. Outwardly, she was active in her Baptist church, even leading youth groups. But hidden beneath her image was a terrible secret. Prosecutors later revealed she delivered a baby boy in a bathroom, placed him in a garbage bag, and left him in the trunk of her car. Days later, during a church retreat, she dumped the bag in the woods of Geauga County. On March 25, 1993, 2 women delivering newspapers found the infant's mutilated body, dragged into the road by animals. The community was horrified, naming the child Geauga's child and paying for his funeral and headstone. For decades, the case remained unsolved. It wasn't until 2019 that investigators, using genetic genealogy inspired by the Golden State Killer case, matched DNA from the child to Eastwood-Ritchey. Confronted at her home, she confessed not only to abandoning the baby in 1993, but also to disposing of another newborn 2 years earlier. Sheriff Scott Hildenbrand told reporters she showed absolutely no remorse and refused to even call the baby her son, instead referring to him as it. The trial in 2022 revealed chilling details. Prosecutors argued she knew she was pregnant for months and deliberately concealed it. Jurors saw graphic crime scene photos, and the coroner confirmed the child was born alive. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found her guilty of murder, though not aggravated murder. Judge David Andres sentenced her to life in prison with parole eligibility after 15 years, calling her a monster who deserves life imprisonment. The community reacted with sorrow and relief. Retired Detective Thomas Dewey, who pursued the case for decades, said he could rest in peace after justice was finally served. From this case, 3 urgent warnings emerge. Denial of pregnancy can mask dangerous realities. Every attempt to cover up crime leaves evidence that technology may one day uncover. And silence from bystanders allows unimaginable harm to continue. Today, Gail Eastwood-Ritchey serves her sentence in the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Her conviction, built on cutting-edge DNA tools, stands as proof that time does not erase truth, and the memory of Giaga's child endures, reminding us that hidden secrets eventually demand justice. Number 8. Ruth Miller. They lived by traditions meant to preserve peace and faith, yet behind the quiet fields of Ohio, one family's retreat to the lake exposed a tragedy no one could ignore. Ruth Miller, 40 years old, a mother of 4 and member of the Amish community in Millersburg, was accused of taking the life of her youngest child while also endangering her other 3. Married to Marcus Miller, 45, Ruth's struggles with mental health had been whispered about within her family, but nothing hinted at the violence that was about to unfold. The sequence began early on August 23 at Atwood Lake. Around 8 a.m., witnesses saw Ruth place her 4-year-old son, Vincent, into a golf cart and drive toward the dock. Investigators later revealed that she drowned the child, later admitting in a statement, "I gave my son to the Lord." 2 hours later, she returned to the same dock and drove the golf cart, this time with her teenage daughter and twin adult sons aboard, directly into the water. The older children managed to escape, but the image of that act haunted the community. Parallel to this, Marcus Miller embarked on what deputies described as a spiritual test. He entered the lake, attempting to swim to a sandbar, but drowned. Divers recovered his body a day later, separate from his wife's alleged actions. Sheriff Orvis Campbell explained to reporters, "She was in a severe mental crisis. Her words reflected a spiritual delusion." Her attorney, Ian Friedman, echoed this in court, stating, "This case would not have happened but for a mental defect that prevented her from appreciating the wrongfulness of her conduct." On September 8th, Ruth appeared in Tuscarawas County Common Pleas Court. Her face remained pale and distant as the prosecutor read 7 counts: aggravated murder, felonious assault, child endangering, and domestic violence. Prosecutor Ryan Steyer insisted this was not an accident. The evidence shows planning and intent. The Amish and wider Ohio community were left in grief. Vigils were held for Vincent, whose obituary noted he will be dearly missed by his sister and brothers, grandparents, cousins, uncles, and aunts. Online, discussions erupted over the limits of faith, mental illness, and justice. Such cases leave painful lessons. Warning signs of delusion must never be ignored. Early intervention is essential, and untreated illness can devastate entire families. In the silence that follows, one question lingers. How many lives could be spared if we truly listened before it was too late? Number 9. Yazeed Essa. He was the doctor everyone trusted, yet beneath the white coat lay a secret so dangerous it shattered an entire family and stunned a nation. Dr. Yazeed Essa, a 36-year-old emergency room physician at Akron General Medical Center, was admired for his skill but known privately for infidelity, heavy drinking, and deceit. Married to Rosie Essa, the mother of his 2 young children, he lived a double life. Prosecutors would later reveal that his marriage, once described as stable, had become a cage he sought to escape through murder. On February 24, 2005, Rosie left for a movie with her sister. Moments earlier, Essa had insisted she swallow a calcium pill, claiming it would help her bones as she tried for another pregnancy. Behind that pill, however, was a lethal truth. It had been emptied and refilled with potassium cyanide. Driving to the theater, Rosie suddenly felt ill. She called a friend saying, "I think the pill Yazeed gave me is making me sick." Minutes later, she lost consciousness behind the wheel. Her SUV rolled gently into a curb. She was rushed to Akron General, where her husband worked, and pronounced dead within the hour. Detectives quickly grew suspicious. Friends reported the strange pill, and a toxicology test revealed cyanide in her system. Police questioned Essa on March 17, and when pressed, he surrendered the pill bottles. Soon after, he threw a going-away party, left his children with relatives, and fled the United States under a false identity. For nearly 2 years, he evaded capture, traveling through Europe and hiding in Lebanon. In October 2006, he was arrested in Cyprus for carrying fake documents. After a lengthy extradition battle, during which U.S. prosecutors assured Cyprus that he would not face the death penalty, Essa was flown back to Ohio in 2009. The trial that followed captivated America. Witnesses testified about his affairs, his lies, and even a confession he made to his brother while jailed overseas. On March 5, 2010, a jury found him guilty of aggravated murder. 4 days later, Judge Dina Calabrese sentenced him to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20 years, noting with frustration that Ohio's old law prevented a harsher penalty. Dressed in bright orange prison scrubs, Essa showed little emotion as Rosemarie's family wept openly. Her mother called him an evil, murderous coward. This case is a sobering reminder. Beware when trust is blind, even in close relationships. Take sudden health symptoms seriously and seek immediate help. And hidden patterns of manipulation often signal deeper danger. In the end, Essa's betrayal teaches one enduring truth: appearances deceive, but actions never lie. Number 10. Judith Hawkey. In small-town Ohio, a family tragedy unfolded that looked accidental at first glance, but years later, investigators would uncover a chilling manipulation hidden behind it. Judith Hawkey, born in 1967, was a wife, stepmother, and caretaker who appeared devoted. In reality, prosecutors described her as controlling and abusive, orchestrating an act so insidious that the trial judge called evil beyond description. On November 3, 2003, her husband, 34-year-old Robert Brininger, was found dead in his bed with a single gunshot wound to the head. His 10-year-old son, Corey, told police he had been playing with the gun when it went off. Authorities ruled the death an accident, and the case went cold. But behind closed doors, Corey lived in fear. He later revealed years of abuse, beatings, attempted drownings, and psychological torment. At 19, he finally told the teacher the truth. Judith had manipulated him into pulling the trigger, convincing him his father was terminally ill and wanted to die so the family could collect $500,000 in insurance money. She allegedly showed Corey where to find the gun and told him to dial 911 after the shooting. Investigators reopened the case, and in March 2013, a grand jury indicted Hawk. Her trial in Defiance County exposed disturbing details. Corey testified about years of violence and the fatal night. Prosecutors presented insurance paperwork Judith filed immediately after Robert's death. In November 2013, the jury convicted her of aggravated murder, insurance fraud, and child endangerment. Dressed in prison khaki, Hawkey showed no remorse as Judge Joseph Schmenck sentenced her to life without parole. Corey told the court, "The pain you put me through should send you straight to hell." In 2016, an appeals court overturned the conviction, citing improper testimony from expert witnesses. A retrial loomed, but the state's case had weakened. In March 2019, Hawkey entered an Alford plea to involuntary manslaughter and child endangering, accepting conviction without admitting guilt. She received 10 years in prison, including time already served. The case sparked debate in Ohio's courts about the limits of testimony and the difficulty of prosecuting crimes built on a child's word. National media covered the shocking twist of a mother manipulating her own child into murder. From this case, the lessons are hauntingly clear. Abusive control can be invisible until it turns deadly. Financial desperation can fuel calculated crimes, and children can be coerced into silence unless adults listen closely. Judith Hawkey's story reminds us that sometimes the darkest betrayals come not from strangers, but from within the family itself. Number 11. Frederick Treesh. It began as a crime spree fueled by cocaine, but it ended with a death chamber in Ohio, and the chilling story still echoes decades later. Frederick Treesh, born in 1964 in Indiana, was no stranger to hardship. He battled depression, ADHD, and a severe cocaine addiction. By 30, he was a convicted thief and burglar, spiraling into crack use that consumed every decision. On August 27, 1994, desperation drove him and his accomplices to Eastlake, Ohio, where they targeted the Vine Street News adult bookstore. Armed with a 9mm loaded with hydroshock bullets and duct tape to restrain victims, Treesh walked in with deadly intent. Inside, cashier Louis Lauver was confronted first, but Treesh sought out security guard Henry Dupree in the back. After ordering him to stand, he shoved the gun against Dupree and fired twice into his chest at close range. Dupree collapsed and died instantly. Moments later, as Lauver cooperated at the register, Treesh shot him in the face and arm before fleeing. Lauver survived, calling 911 despite severe injuries. Outside, police pursued Treesh's car. Shots were fired at Euclid officers, including Sergeant Ronald Stee. Treesh ran out of ammunition, tried to escape on foot, but was captured before dawn. The Lake County grand jury returned a 7-count indictment. At trial, jurors heard about Treesh's crime spree across multiple states, his earlier role in a Michigan robbery that left one man dead and another critically injured, and his unrelenting addiction. Prosecutors described the murder of Henry Dupree as gratuitous and cruel. In March 1995, a jury convicted Treesh of aggravated murder and recommended death. Judge Richard Lilly adopted the verdict, and the Ohio Supreme Court later upheld it. For nearly 2 decades, appeals wound through state and federal courts. In 2013, Governor John Kasich denied clemency. On March 6, Treesh, then 48, was executed by lethal injection. In his final words, he said softly, "This is where drugs lead you." Witnesses described him as calm, wearing the prison's standard gray uniform. Families of the victims spoke with raw emotion. Dupree's daughter declared, "We strongly support an eye for an eye." Members of the Dano family, victims from the Michigan robbery, called him soulless and heartless, with one sister-in-law stating, "Justice was served." Cases like this leave lasting lessons. Addiction can destroy every barrier of morality. Carrying firearms while high magnifies tragedy, and ignoring early criminal behavior often fuels escalation to violence. Treesh's story stands as a grim warning. Unchecked addiction and desperation can transform a man into a killer, leaving devastation far beyond his own end. Number 12. Ronald Ray Phillips. A crime so brutal, so unthinkable, that it reshaped Ohio's debate on justice, began not with a weapon, but with a child's silent suffering. Ronald Ray Phillips, born in 1973, grew up amid abuse and neglect, yet his troubled past could not excuse what followed. At just 19, he became the center of one of Ohio's most harrowing murder cases. On January 18, 1993, he was caring for his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter, Sheila Marie Evans, when rage and violence overtook him. According to his own confession, he struck her repeatedly after she failed to respond to his calls for breakfast. That same day, he raped her. The 3rd time he admitted to doing so. Sheila's mother, Faye Evans, found her daughter unresponsive on the bed and rushed her to a hospital in Akron. Doctors discovered catastrophic injuries, more than 125 bruises covering her tiny body, severe internal trauma, and evidence of sexual assault. She died despite emergency surgery. The medical examiner described the findings as among the worst he had ever seen. Phillips quickly confessed to police, admitting both the fatal assault and prior rapes. Prosecutors charged him with aggravated murder, rape, and sexual penetration. In September 1993, a state court convicted him, and at just 19, he was sentenced to death. The parole board later wrote that the crime represented the killing of a vulnerable 3-year-old victim, an abuse of trust, and extensive victimization, among the worst of the worst capital crimes. Over the next 24 years, Phillips' execution was scheduled 9 times, each delayed by appeals over his age, requests for organ donation, and challenges to Ohio's lethal injection protocol. While on death row, he sought redemption, training as a prison minister and expressing remorse. "Sheila Marie did not deserve what I did to her," he told the court, but for Sheila's family, forgiveness was elusive. Her aunt, Donna Hudson, said, "We'll have to live with this the rest of our lives," while her half-sister, Renee Mundell, called the execution too easy. Though acknowledging his final apology, on July 26, 2017, Ronald Phillips was executed by lethal injection, Ohio's first execution after a 3.5-year pause. From this tragedy, 3 urgent lessons emerge. Always act when a child shows signs of abuse. Recognize that cycles of violence rarely stop on their own. And remember that abusers often exploit trust before they destroy it. The haunting truth of this case reminds us that justice can punish, but it can never erase the stolen future of a child. Evil does not always wear a mask. Sometimes it hides in families, behind uniforms, or beneath the promise of love. These Ohio stories prove that the most ordinary faces can conceal the darkest truths. But the question remains, how many more secrets lie buried, waiting for the next investigation, the next trial, the next moment of justice revealed? If you don't want to miss what comes next, make sure you subscribe to Justice Reversed and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to uncover the untold cases we bring to light. Stay vigilant, stay questioning, and remember, the line between trust and betrayal is thinner than you think.